Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of TGC Radio. It's episode 7, and after the 2-hour-long episode that was episode 6, talking about every single record that I listened to in 2023, I'm back here with the first episode on the newly rebranded third channel, which is specifically for TGC Radio and all music-related content, because I figured it's probably best to have the music stuff on its own thing. I do want to also say some of the music stuff won't be leaving its original uploads on the main channel. And quite honestly, this might end up technically becoming the main channel because it's probably going to be the one that has the most consistent uploads because of TGC Radio being a weekly series. But yeah, some of the other content won't be leaving the main channel, like some video ideas I kind of want to do like a sequel to, or some sort of video remake like I've talked about with other stuff, and stuff like, say, the 3 Days Grace album ranking Tyson and I did. That video is doing so well for us, I don't want to get rid of that anyway, especially not when it's got a lot of likes and views, and it's actually got so much interaction, which is the thing that I've wanted the most since I've started YouTube in the first place. I just want people to comment and interact with it and just have cool discussions about the content, you know? So seeing as how that video has that, it's not going anywhere. That video in particular, I'll probably do like an edited down version and put that on the TGC Radio channel. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at things there. And for this episode of TGC Radio, we'll obviously do the week-to-week most listened to stuff for January 5th to January 11th, 2024. The first full week of 2024 for the series, and we will finally do the 2023 best of lists. We've taken a look at my favorites from 2023 of stuff that I listened to but not necessarily released, and now this episode we'll be doing 2023 best albums according to me, strictly my opinion. And the albums that were newly released in 2023 that I listened to were only 13, which you'll find out at the end of the video once I start that portion of it anyway. So yeah, we'll get to that when we get to it, as you know. But first things first, let's do top artists from the week of January 5th to January 11th, 2024. My top artist was Against the Current, and then we have Echo Smith, then we have Blink-182, then we have Spanish Love Songs, and then Taking Back Sunday, and then Alex Melton. And what can I say? It's exactly what you'd expect. I mean, what more can I say at this point? Like, it's exactly what you'd expect. From every other episode from me, it's par for the course, like I always say. Most of this is, and most of it will be, obviously. We'll move on to albums, and I'll talk about some other stuff more. So albums, we have number 1, In Our Bones by Against the Current, Gravity by Against the Current, Infinity by Against the Current, Dogs Eating Dogs by Blink-182, Lonely Generation by Echo Smith, and then a tie for number 6, we have No Joy by Spanish Love Songs, and Weezer's Blue Album. And top songs, we have One More Weekend, Talk, and Another You Another Way, all by Against the Current. And then, weirdly, we have Buddy Holly by Weezer from the Blue Album. And I guess just for clarity's sake, One More Weekend is from In Our Bones, Talk is from Gravity, and Another You Another Way is from Infinity. So yeah, so that's all the most listened to stuff. And to go a little more in depth, like I always like to do, Echo Smith, as I always like to say, they're just a band that when I finally sat down and fully got into them, they just kind of scratched an itch for me that I didn't know that I needed, and I definitely think I like them so much now, probably because, partly at least, because of also getting to Spanish Love Songs at the same time, really, and pairing those two together and having both of them helping me in so many various ways, especially with mental health at the time. Again, it worked, and it kind of like, it helped me so different. Like I said, they both helped me, but doing so in different ways. I think that's probably part of why, but yeah, they're like probably never gonna like leave the top. If they ever do leave the top, kind of like with Against the Current at this point, if they ever leave the top, I will be very surprised. It'll be very weird. I'm here for it though. Like, as much as I love them, and they probably won't, I'm here for it in the future to see if that does happen and who they end up getting replaced by in the list. But yeah, so that's the Echo Smith part. No Joy, like I've said in the last few, I've just been going back to No Joy and Spanish love songs and really trying to figure out exactly how I feel about the record, the new one. Taking Back Sunday, I've still been jamming out to 152. Alex Melton, like I've always said before, I just really love his covers, and I've still been low-key kind of obsessed with Autumnal, which, I mean, it's a fall banger, and my favorite season is fall, so, like, yeah, I don't care it's winter right now. Go away. Nobody wants you. Fall's where it's at. Let's go. Anyway, yeah, Autumnal's a banger. Stream it. And that's kind of part of why Alex is there. And then Blink's mainly there. I have been spinning some other stuff, like I've been going back to some stuff from 9 and One More Time, like always. They're mainly there because of Dogs Eating Dogs, though. I finally decided to sit down with that record in particular, and that's what I did. EP record, whatever. I sat down with that, and yeah, it's very solid. Now, I know some people like to say Neighborhoods feels very like Angels and Airwaves with Mark and Travis featuring. I don't fully agree with, at least from what I've heard of Neighborhoods. I still haven't fully listened to it yet, but like from what I've heard, I don't fully agree. But god damn it, if Dogs Eating Dogs doesn't feel that way though. And the thing is, like, I like Angels and Airwaves a lot, and I don't think it's fully that, but I feel the Angels influence way more on this than what I've heard of Neighborhoods. But no, in general, Dogs Eating Dogs is a very solid EP, and the fact that that was like the last thing that they would write together until the stuff for One More Time is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Which would have been, what, like about a decade, if not a little bit longer? Again, which is crazy, you know? But yeah, so that's why Blink's there. And then, I guess the current, like I said, kind of with Echo Smith, they're pretty much always going to be there at this point. And In Our Bones, like I said, a few episodes ago, or in the last few episodes, I said, I finally re-listened to In Our Bones late in 2023. And finally remembered just how good it is. It hit me way more than the first listen. And it's just been in constant rotation. That hasn't changed, obviously. And then, as well as Dogs Eating Dogs, for my 2024 albums project, which we'll talk about, you know, at a later date, which I do have some other ideas for that, which we can get into later, but for now, I'll just say for that, along with listening to Dogs Eating Dogs, and of course, like my first record of the year I listened to was also Permanent Waves by Rush. So along with Dogs Eating Dogs, Permanent Waves, I listened to the very first two things I guess the Current did, like that they put out, which was, of course, the Infinity and then Gravity EPs, which would lead into In Our Bones, obviously. And yeah, they were very good, and I liked them a lot, and I've been coming back to songs from both quite a bit. Mainly to Gravity, because I've been low-key obsessed with Talk. Like, Talk is such a banger. Like, it's a pop-punk banger. And that leads me into my point that I was about to make before I interrupted myself. I never really understood the Against the Current pop-punk comparison, I guess, like calling them pop punk and labeling them that. I never really understood it because, like, I was familiar with, you know, I was familiar with Fever and Past Lives and In Our Bones, and, like, I wouldn't call Past Lives or Past Lives certainly not, but I wouldn't call In Our Bones pop punk, and even Fever I wouldn't, you know. I love all three, obviously, you know. Yeah, we've talked about them before on the show. But yeah, no, I wouldn't call any of those pop punk, so I just never really understood labeling them pop punk. But then listening to Gravity and Infinity, I'm like, okay, I get it now. Their first two EPs, 100% are like very pop punk. Like, they were ingrained into like the pop punk scene, and like I get it. And they're both very strong, and I think it's gonna be really interesting to potentially look for any footage coming out from When We Were Young scheduled this year, knowing that, I guess, the Current's on the bill and they decided to play Gravity. Like, I think that will be very interesting, and yeah, that's really all I want to say for that. Because really, I'm just curious to know, like, would they ever go back to, like, a more pop-punk-centric sound? Because, like, I love what they've been doing, you know, like, releasing Fever and the stuff after. Admittedly, I haven't listened to the stuff after. I've only listened to Fever. I really need to get around to that. I really do. But yeah, like, listening to Fever, you know, I love that a lot, and, like, knowing that they were writing with members of Bring Me the Horizon, and, like, I feel like that shows. And yeah, very interested in all of that. But again, just being a massive fan of pop punk as well, like, I'm interested to see if, like, what could they do for pop punk as a genre if they were to make more of that style again, you know? That's kind of how I am thinking right now. But yeah, that's really all I'm going to say for all of that for the week stuff right now. Or like I said, you know, all the bands there are about what you would expect from me, listening to some new stuff that I hadn't, with Gravity, Infinity, Dogs Eating Dogs, and of course, it's just the one song for the Blue album, but I don't know. Thinking about Fortnite Festival, you know, it's Fortnite rock band, basically, and, you know, yeah, it's a lot of fun thinking about Buddy Holly being in there, and just, I love the opening to Buddy Holly. It's so meme-worthy. I love it. Yeah, so, I don't know. But that's all I'm going to say for that part, for the most part. But, with that being said, let's get into the best albums of 2023, according to me, when I've only listened to 13 albums that released in 2023. But, let's get into it. Here we go. Now, first things first, what I will say, first thing first, all 13 new releases of 2023 that I listened to, I do like all of them to a degree. Like, I don't dislike anything here. I will say that. Now, number 13 is going to ruffle some feathers. I already know this. I mean, hell, number 13 might have someone I live with coming upstairs to confront me about it, but I don't give a shit. Number 13 is Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token. Definitely, of the new releases I listened to, my least favorite. Now, maybe it's because I just don't listen to, like, you know, heavier music. Like, I like metalcore, but I never got super into metalcore either. And I know, like, they're in the metalcore scene, they're in the metalcore world, but, like, they're also blending a bunch of genres. And I do think, personally, even if they don't really excel at any one genre that they're blending together, I do think those are the parts that interest me the most, even if I don't care for the frontman's vocals, I don't care for when they get super heavy. Like, there are times where I think it's totally fine, and, like, the screaming in certain songs doesn't bother me at all. Like, sometimes I think the screaming can help the song, other times I'm just kind of indifferent to it, but I never dislike it. And the frontman's voice, I think his name is Vessel, his voice doesn't do a whole lot for me. I just don't care for the way he sings and how it sounds. I think a lot of the times when he sings faster, it sounds better to me, it's more interesting. But anytime where it's a slower, more drawn-out style of singing, I'm like, nah, I can take or leave this, you know? I just, don't need it. But in general, no. It was an album that, for me, I talked about it in the previous video. You know, I sat down with it, and I started listening to the record, like, about the first half of it, I want to say in, like, July of 2023, and didn't really care for it too much. I thought some things were fine. Like, I remember genuinely thinking Granite was okay. But, like, the opener, Chokehold, I didn't care for. The Summoning, I thought was fine, but I also felt like it kind of overstayed its welcome for me personally. I thought it was a little too long. Vor, I didn't care for. Vor, I'm not gonna say I didn't care for Vor. I was more just indifferent towards it, and I think it's the weakest song on the record for me personally. But like, it was more indifference, really, rather than just like a pure dislike of it, which I guess you could probably argue is maybe worse, because at least if you dislike something, it's at least getting like a reaction out of you. At least you feel strongly one way or the other. But I don't know, yeah. Like the first half I didn't really care for that much, but then when I finally revisited the record later in the year, and I thought genuinely when I did that, it was pretty solid. I thought the heavier moments that were still in the back half were good. I felt the songs that were longer, like the title track, didn't overstay their welcome, and I was genuinely impressed by some of the softer songs they tried as well, and I thought the closing track was a very good way to end off the record. But compared to everything else, new release-wise, for me, it does have to be at the bottom, at number 13. So yeah, there's that, and we move on to number 12, which is Neon Noir by VV, aka Villavallo, aka the former frontman of Him, aka His Infernal Majesty. And yeah, I'm not very familiar with Him personally. I know some of their bigger songs, like I know like Killing Loneliness and Wings of a Butterfly and Ode to Solitude, etc. And I like those a lot. But outside of those, I was never really familiar with Him. But I knew from what I had heard I liked, you know? So I was very interested, and I sat down with Neon Noir. It was like my first new release of 2023, and I thought it was solid. I didn't come back to it very much throughout the year, and I only started coming back to it more later in the year, and while I don't love the whole thing, and while I don't really envision myself going back to it very much, when I did come back to the things that I did like on the record, I was like, yeah, this is still good. Solid overall, and I don't have much else to say besides I knew it did have to be above Take Me Back to Eden for me, but not much higher. Another one that I don't want to talk about too much, but number 11 is Tell Me I'm Alive by All Time Low. I've talked about it before. All Time Low used to be my favorite band. I do think a lot of their music is still very good and holds up pretty well, and I knew that it just would kind of feel wrong if I didn't listen to the new record, so I did, and it is a solid output from All Time Low. It's not their best, nowhere close. It's nowhere near their weakest, though. It's very much kind of like middle of the road All Time Low with some genuinely good material on it. If you're a fan of the band, or you can separate the art from the artist, then you probably will get some enjoyment out of Tell Me I'm Alive. And that's all, and that's where I'll leave it there before we move on to number 10, Childhood Eyes by Yellowcard. And goddamn, what a solid EP Childhood Eyes was. Like, I cannot believe that one. I mean, I guess I can, because Yellowcard is a pretty consistent band when it comes to, like, solid output. Like a solid output of records. And, you know, like, when they dropped the music video for Childhood Eyes, which is also, I want to say, the same time they released the song, it's like, this is so good. It's new material from Yellowcard, very good band, and yeah, it was great. And then they announced they'd be working on like an EP's worth of new material. They would have some features like from Vic of Pierce the Veil, Chris of Dashboard Confessional, and yeah, it was just, sat down with it, liked it a lot. All 5 tracks on there are very solid, and yeah. But I knew, again, it couldn't be much higher than number 10 here, because outside of the title track, I didn't come back to very much from the record until, again, late in the year for, like, the really buckling down, re-listening to what I had previously listened to in the year to try and figure out the year-end list. But yeah, it's a very, like, it's an incredibly solid EP. Like, it's, yeah, I love it. Very good. And also for Childhood Eyes, a part of the re-listening, preparing for the year-end list, I did also want to mention, you know, songs like 3 Minutes More are good. Like, Vic and Ryan sound good together. They're singing the entire thing together. And yeah, it's just a good song. They both sound great. Honest from the Jump is another good song. Like, the drums and violin really make this band to, like, that was one of those things where, like, I realized that when I was re-listening to everything, and I had to make that note. It's like, the drums and the violin, I feel like, really make Yellowcard, that's part of their identity. And, like, everyone else is doing really good jobs with what they're doing, but, like, the drums and the violin, without them, they're not Yellowcard, you know? I mean, I guess you could argue without everyone doing everything, they're not Yellowcard, to be fair, like. But yeah, like, the standouts for me have always been the drums and the violin. And yeah. And then the places we'll go, like I kind of said with Vic and Ryan and Chris both sound good. It's a great song about the band's past. And I also wanted to make a note of, I really like when the drums come in, because they're kind of bombastic in a way too, and I like that a lot. But then we move on to number 9, which is Brand New Me by Concrete Castle. So Brand New Me, let me just say, like, again, I've talked about it before, what a solid sophomore record from Concrete Castles. Again, like, knowing who the band were since First to 11, really enjoying a lot of their covers, starting the Originals project, being signed, Wish I Missed You being as good as it is, as good of a debut record as it is, I was incredibly interested in the sophomore release. Again, I've talked about it before, and I don't want to go too in-depth here because I've already done that. And, you know, again, I didn't really care for, I still don't really care for the way the album opens. I don't really like the first 4 tracks that much, but in saying that, track 5 down to the end is so good. I love it a lot. And again, things I just have to always mention. Lucky is such a good song. It's got a banging bridge. Where Are You Now is so good too. It's just a really sweet song about their hometown. And You Won't See Me Again is such a banger. I'll stand by. I feel like it's the best song they've recorded. I love it so much. It's so good. But then we move into number 8, which is self-titled Echosmith. And like, what can I say? You know, what can I say that I haven't said about Echosmith before? Like, I love this band. And again, like, I never would have imagined sitting here saying this all those years ago. But, oh, I love this band so much. And I just love that how they just always seem to radiate good vibes, you know? And I really love the song Brother Sister. It's such a sweet song about their family. I love the dual vocals that kind of harken back to Talking Dreams, since a lot of those songs had dual vocals as well. And it's just such a good song. Sour, I really love as well. And it just kind of reminds me of why I love the first record so much, actually. It gives me the same vibes again. And Hang Around, I fucking love it. Like, so much. Again, it just reminds me why I love the band. It's up there with the rest of my faves. And I knew that it had to be above the other records. As well as that, listening to even more from it again for the re-listens and the year-end list, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying. I did want to also mention that Prima Donna is better than I remember it. Hindsight, again, kind of like Prima Donna, better than I remember. It's an absolute bop, and it just feels good to listen to. And it also made me realize, listening to Hindsight again, that's like, at this point, I should really sit down and re-listen in full to both this and the record by Boy Genius. And I really want to do that, you know? And then re-listening to Gelato again, and it just feels good. The chorus feels chant-worthy, and I almost do think that this might be the weakest single from the record, and it probably is, right? But like Hang Around is so strong, and Sour, I love Sour so much. But Gelato's still very good, and I also wrote down, ooh, I forgot about that little guitar solo. And yeah, I love that. But yeah, like Southside Echo Smith was so good. It kind of harkens back to Talking Dreams in more ways than one. They're kind of making a record that feels the same kind of way, whereas like Lonely Generation, as much as I like it, it definitely has a different feeling, a bit of a different vibe to Talking Dreams and now Self-Titled. And I knew they were kind of intending for that. When making Self-Titled here, they wanted to make something that kind of like embraced their roots. And yeah, I feel like they accomplished that, and it's a really good record. And just everything like that just reminds me that, you know, I wish more people would listen to Echo Smith and not only listen to like Cool Kids and Bright. As much as I like both those songs, especially Bright, there's so much more than both of those songs, you know? But yeah, very solid record there. And at number 7, we have This Is Why by Paramore. And another one I feel like I might get some shit for, having this low compared to some of the, compared to other things here. But This Is Why what can I say? I've said it so many times before, Paramore I love. One of my favorite bands ever. Like, they're so good. They've been so good for so long. I will always be in the camp that they don't have a bad record. But in saying that, I just didn't love this record as much as a lot of other people did. And I still think it's a very good record, and I think it's a record that improves greatly in its second half. But if I had to rank all the Paramore records, I would say their weakest is All We Know Is Falling, with This Is Why right above it. And don't think that's me instantly gonna put like Riot or something at the top, because I still think their best record is After Laughter. So it's not like biased towards like old Paramore, because I stand by After Laughter is their best. But in saying that, again, I do like every record. They don't have a bad record. And This Is Why is still solid. Like I said, I think it greatly improves in the second half, and I think some of the stuff in the first half also is very good. I really like the title track. The News is very solid as well. I think personally the best single that they released for the record. And I still like C'est Comme Ça, but I don't know. It's just a very silly song that I don't care for that much. But again, it's still silly and kind of fun. I do like it. But when I talk about stuff like that, I felt the need to talk about You First is such a really... Like, You First, even deviating from the notes I wrote for this, You First is so good. I love... it hits so well. And, yeah, it's like, You First, best way to describe it is a banger. It's such a banger of a track, and I love that. And it's been one that... It's definitely... You First is definitely my favorite from the record, and it's been one that I've been coming back to a lot recently. It's just a really good track that I really wish that I would have come back to more throughout the year. Back to the notes here. It's a banger, but it's a banger. Crave, I stand by... With Crave, again, another really good song in the back of the record, and I felt the need to write that I stand by that this album is way better in the back half, and this is just another really good song. And Figure 8, again, a song that just bangs so hard. Again, love those. And yeah, like, This Is Why was so strong. I love it a lot. But again, I don't love the entire thing. I don't think it's the best Paramore record. I am incredibly interested in what they do, not attached to a label though, now that they aren't. That I'm so interested in seeing what they do, and I want to see that. I want to hear that. But still a very good, very solid record. But again, I don't think it's their best. And it sits for me at number 7. And at number 6, one that again I might get some shit for being so low compared to other things, but number 6 is The Record by Boy Genius. Now, this is one that, in my defense, obviously I have to rank it. It was a new release in 2023. I listened to it, so I have to rank it. And as much as I love it, as much as I regret not sitting down with it and like just fully paying attention to it for so long, making it this like thing I just threw on, did other things, and I just didn't give it what it needed. And I regretted that so much, and it's so good. I've been coming back to a lot recently, but I still feel like I need more time with it, and I need to give it more of my energy, you know? Like, I need to fully sit down, listen to the entire thing front to back in one sitting, and just focus on it. Just take everything in. And I've been kind of doing that, but I haven't done it in full yet. And that's primarily why it's kind of like just about dead center on the list, you know? So sadly, I will though. It's such a good record. Like, I love it so much. And like, I really like the opening, Without You, Without Them. Of course, Everyone sounds great, as we know. Anti-Curse is so good, especially when it gets a bit heavier. The build-up is very good in the song. Not Strong Enough is probably still my favorite right now. It's just very good. The chorus is amazing, and I love this record. And then $20 was the next thing I have a note on. And that, I just had to say, I really hate myself for never really giving this record a chance. I listened to it, but I didn't really. I guess the best way to word that is, I listened to it, but I didn't hear it. Or is that phrase flipped? Is it, I heard it, but I didn't listen to it? Yeah, I'm sure someone listening, watching, whatever, knows the phrase. Whatever, you know what I'm saying. I listened to it, but I didn't really. Late in the song, I also noticed that there was kind of screaming in the background, and it just works. I like it a lot. Emily, I'm sorry, I said I really like the lyrics, and to be fair, I like the lyrics on the record a lot, just in general. And I said it feels very relatable, honestly. Low-key, I really feel this song. Different vibes, obviously, but it's still great, you know? And then, Cool About It was the next one I have a note for, and that is... and I felt the need to say that this record makes me want to actually sit down and finally give Petals for Armor the chance that I've been meaning to give it since that release back in 2020. Like, I listened to that record, and just, that one just didn't stick with me, which was so surprising. It was shocked to me, because, like, I loved everything Paramore, and I was like, even throughout all the changes and everything, I was like, I love everything Paramore, and I'm like, I want to like this, and I loved Simmer when it released. But yeah, it just didn't really sit with me, and... But listening to the record and was like, I knew that, I know now that, yeah, I'm gonna have to finally give Petals for Armor that real chance, that real listen, you know? And yeah, admittedly, if I would have given this record more of a chance, it probably would have been higher, to be brutally honest. But just because I feel like I need to sit down with it more, for now, it's sitting pretty much about halfway in the list at number 6. And number 5, a surprising record that has been in constant rotation for me since I listened to it late in 2023. That is 152 by Taking Back Sunday. And Jesus, you know, like, That's one where I just never really expected to... I knew I'd like it, but I never expected to like it this much, you know? Because, like, I just figured, it's Taking Back Sunday. I'll like Taking Back Sunday, and I do, but I like it a lot. It's such a good record. The only thing that I would want more of is I want more dual vocals. I want more Adam and John both singing together on the songs. Like, that's like the only thing I would change. Like, they only do it kind of like the old days once on 152, and that is on The One, which is my favorite on the record. Like I said, that's the only thing I would change, personally. But if we get into my notes for what I came back and really sat down and listened to for the record, I have a note for I Am the Only One Who Knows You, and I said it's a very good song. Then The One is amazing and also features the great dual vocals from John and Adam. And Keep Going is a banger. I didn't write too much for any of those, actually. I'm kind of surprised. And then I have a couple of notes for songs again, and that is Juice to Me. There's just something about this record that is just, it's good. And then New Music Friday, I have a note for it, which was a note for me, not for the video, but I'll say it anyway. And that was just me saying, to this point, it's definitely above everything else on the list for me. And it's just so good. Like, I kind of struggle to put this one into words, I guess. And I guess I struggle to put it in words for this one specifically because, like, I don't know. I knew I'd like it, but I didn't ever expect to like it as much as I have. You know what I mean? And that one just kind of gets me. But 152 is very solid. It's one of the records on the list that genuinely I do like every single song on it, which I can't say for every album. It's been one that I've been coming back to a lot. Been one that's been in constant rotation, and it's just Taking Back Sunday showing that even more than 20 years into their run as a band, even through all the lineup changes and everything, they still have things that they can say, and they can still put out good music. In at number 4, we have So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy. Now, this is one that I can say right now. I don't even look at my notes. I can say it right now that this one in my head was fairly contested. Like, part of me wanted to put 152 above So Much for Stardust. Because, again, I don't love everything on So Much for Stardust. There are things that I have not come back to. I didn't really care for. But I just think the strongest material on Stardust is so good and puts it up above 152 for me. And the fact that I have been coming back to Love from the Other Side, Fake Out, Heartbreak Feels So Good. Recently I've been coming back to So Good Right Now. And, like, Hold Me Like a Grudge has also been growing on me even more. So like, really the first 3 of those, Fake Out, Heartbreak, and Love From, I've been coming back to so much throughout the entire year. And, and, like, the strongest material just holds it up above for me personally. And, such a good record. If we get into my notes, we have Heartbreak Feels So Good as another banger. This record is just doing something different to every other one on the list for me. It's just a fun record, super fun to listen and sing along to. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and sometimes, that's just necessary. Fake Out, this song just continues the same thing. It's just a fun song. Right now, it's just a fun song. And Love from the Other Side, an absolute banger. It fucking rips. And I think it fucking rips. And I listened to some other stuff as well. I actually had finally returned to the song Heaven, Iowa. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, like, I liked it at the time, but I didn't want to ever come back to it, really, and then I came back to it, and I was like, wow, yeah, no, this is good. I like the song a lot. I like what it's doing. I love the build-up in Heaven, Iowa, and, like, yeah, like I said, I think the strongest material on So Much for Stardust keeps it above 152 for me, and puts it in that number 4 spot. But now, the top 3, you know, if you've been watching the rest of these videos, you may think you know what number 1's gonna be. So number 3, this is not actually me doing this to kind of like subvert expectations or anything like that. No, this is generally how I feel and what I have in my notes here. But number 3 is No Joy by Spanish Love Songs. And to be honest, as much as I love this record, it wasn't gonna be number 1 for me. Like, I knew they had to be up there for, like, one of my top bands in the year. I knew that for sure. I knew that Haunted had to be, like, one of the top songs for me of the year. Absolutely knew that, for sure. But, yeah, no. No Joy, kind of the same with the record from Boy Genius. I feel like I need to just sit down with it more as well. Like, I've sat down with the record in full a few times now, but I just feel like I need to sit down with it more. And I love it a lot, you know. Like, going to the notes here, I love the album. Pendulum is so good. Pendulum is one actually I've been coming back to a lot recently. Like, probably more so than, like, just about any other song on the list. Like, I've been coming back to it so much. It's hitting me so hard, and I love it so much. Like, I love the end of the chorus, you know what it is. But yeah, you know, like, it's so good. I love the end of the chorus there. And I knew the record had to be near the top. Then I listened to Cleanup Crew again, which is a song that I had in constant rotation throughout basically half of the year since they released it in, like, July. Love Cleanup Crew a lot. And I knew that after listening to Cleanup Crew again, that this album had to be above 152 for sure. Which at the time the list looked different, and this was sitting right above it. In the kind of like first listen through of all the stuff again. And then Haunted's so good. I know it's the lead single, but it's my favorite song on the record. And with Haunted, I just gave... Past Me just left a question that said, how high on the list will this be? And I got my answer. Not what Past Me was thinking, though. And yeah, kind of similarly, on the next listen of it again, I just knew that it was going to be above everything else that's below it. And it's just such a good record. Like, and again, funny enough, it actually is one that I've been coming back to a lot recently. And yeah. But, I mean, like I said, it's similar to the record by Boy Genius for me. I feel like I just need more time with it. So, I feel like I just can't realistically put it higher than where it's at number 3. And now number 2, this one was a bit contested in my mind as well. But number 2 is Retrovision by Honey Revenge. And you know, this one is so interesting because, like, if we go back just a couple of months to November, I didn't even know who Honey Revenge were. And this, through a very simple, casual recommendation, I sat down with the record. I absolutely loved every song, realized that they're such a good young band, so much talent, so much potential. Songs from the record have been in constant rotation since I listened to it, and yeah. And I knew that, again, a record that I genuinely like every song. I feel strongly about so much of the album. I knew that it had to be top 2. And goddamn if I, goddamn it, like, I damn near put it at number 1. I was so close to doing that. So close. I wanted to, but there's one that I felt like has to be number 1. We're not going to get to it right now, though, because we'll talk more about Retrovision because I want to. Again, Murphy's Law, I just said, is another banger on the record. The record's so good, and I'm kind of thinking of having this at the top. Ultimately, I didn't decide to have it at the top. It's not number one, but again, yeah, I really was considering it. Habitual is probably my favorite on the record right now. But like I said, I love every song. I love the album. And Habitual just, it goes so hard. Like, it goes so hard. Even the line of, like, do you want to be my friend or do you want to fuck? Like, that line, even that line goes so hard. I mean, I guess it would go hard because, like, you know, that's a very real question that, like, a lot of women or femme-presenting people have to ask themselves, you know, like, does this person actually want to be my friend? Do they actually care? Or do they just want to fuck? So yeah, like, it goes so hard, I love it. And then Are You Impressed is such a good song, and like, again, it's another one that just goes so fucking hard. And then, like I've said in a few other episodes of the series, again, listening to like Fight or Flight and like Favorite Song, like, the entire record goes super duper hard. It's so good, and like, highly recommend it. Highly recommend this band for sure. But number one, you might be able to see it coming now. Number one, One More Time by Blink-182. And you know, genuinely, part of me doesn't know if this should be number one, because like, I don't love the entire record. I think it's an incredibly good record from the reuniting of Mark, Tom, and Travis, right? And like, it's a record that almost feels like it shouldn't exist in a way, given everything that had happened. But I'm so glad we live in a world where this record does exist. And it's so good. Again, like, when we were young, I have listed first here for a song I wanted to talk about, and it's just, I love the record, and it's so good. I love that song. One More Time, the title track. It's just a super heartfelt, emotional song. And then More Than You Know, another song here listed in the notes, just fucking rips. And like, and all of these songs genuinely made me think that, yeah, you know, like, it should be number one. And then that point was just reinforced listening to even more of my faves from the record. Listening to stuff like Dance With Me, Blink Wave, Anthem Part 3, Fell in Love. Like, I like the record so much. And you could probably argue that Retrovision's really number one because I like every song on there. I feel so strongly about the record, and I can't say that about One More Time. But kind of like with So Much for Stardust, I do think the absolute best material does put it just one step above, you know? And like, the guys were just swinging for the fences here. And they hit just about every ball out of the park. They made a record that feels like every era of Blink, basically. They called back to like all of their influences, all the things that they've done, even kind of being separate, and gave us something so good. And again, I don't love everything. I still think Edging is fairly weak as a song. I don't love the Lost Boxcar track, Terrified. And I don't particularly care for like the really silly, juvenile, like Enema of the State era humor on it as well with some of the things. But like, when they're firing, they're fucking firing. And put out such a goddamn good record. One More Time, Blink-182. What I'm calling 2023's best record. And that is the list. That is the list. That's another edition of TGC Radio, Episode 7, coming to an end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, comment below, share it on social media, do all that good stuff. Until next time, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.